I have only once, I think, in the depressingly high number of years that I have been paying money over to successive South African governments, only once have I had that heart-stopping moment of your return is going to be audited. Ugh. Thank goodness the audit came back as cleared and the original determination stood, but it's not a comfortable feeling to get. And even more uncomfortable when you know that you can, perhaps, be charged by SARS for the cost of the audit it has decided to conduct on your tax return and your tax affairs. Hoe so? Hoe kan dit wees? Jean de Toit is an attorney at Tax Consulting South Africa. How can this be, Jean? I mean, surely returns being accepted and not being accepted and audited is part of SARS's daily bread and butter. It's a cost they should be bearing.
Yes, I think it's important to note that penalties have always been part of the equation, but where SARS finds that you understated your income, it can certainly impose a penalty if on a percentage basis for the amount that it was understated by.
Is that the same as charging you for doing the audit?
In a sense, yes, but they don't charge you for the hourly rate that the auditor would have worked on. It's just a case of, especially in this case, where SARS argued that it was prejudiced by the fact that it had to expend additional resources to find that the taxpayer actually understated its income and imposed penalties on that basis.
Okay, I need to take a couple of steps back and understand this case. What is this case?
Well, this was a case that was decided in the Supreme Court of Appeal where the taxpayer had in fact paid provisional tax in excess of what SARS was actually due. SARS then conducted an audit and found that the taxpayer had underdeclared its income, although the amount of provisional tax that the taxpayer had paid still outweighed by far, even with the additional tax, what it was owed. So the taxpayer's argument was that SARS was not prejudiced by the fact that it underdeclared its income because SARS had all along held the money and the additional tax could simply be set off against its credit. SARS then argued that they still want to impose understatement penalties on the basis that they had to expend resources in conducting an audit. And by virtue of that fact, they were prejudiced and they imposed an understatement penalty by a percentage of the understated tax.
But does this suggest that they're outsourcing this work? Because where is the liability? They have people who are employed to do this. They work between 8:30 and 4:30. Some of them work between 7:30 and 9:30 at night, those that want to get ahead. And so how are they prejudiced? They're paying the same number of salaries. They're not paying overtime. Their costs are the same. So where's the prejudice? I mean, obviously the court considered all of this and came to the decision that there was prejudice, but it's hard to understand from my layman's perspective.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish the fact that it's not to reimburse and effectively pay for the audit. The SARS's argument was simply that they had to employ additional resources that could have been used elsewhere to find the fact that the taxpayer had understated its income, and on that basis they had found that the prejudice lied there, which is a prerequisite for imposing understatement penalties.
Okay, so it's not as to state it as SARS is making you pay for the audit that it chooses to conduct on your tax affairs is a misstatement of the issue.
Well, it's not. It doesn't attribute the cost directly. What it is saying is that if SARS has to audit you and it finds that you misstate or underclared your income, it would say it can make you pay for that. Not a direct cost, but it can penalize you for that, and SARS will penalize you for that.
Under what circumstances will they penalize you under this court judgment?
Well, if SARS audits you and they find that there is an understatement in your income, generally, with the Tax Administration Act, obliges SARS to impose the highest applicable understatement penalty percentage, which standard is 100%. So the difference between the amount of tax that is chargeable and that you declared would be multiplied by the percentage imposed by SARS, which would then normally be 100%. It's then on you as the taxpayer to argue and say that you are deserving of a lesser penalty percentage, or that it should be waived.
In practice, does SARS waive these penalties if one can somehow prove that it was a genuine mistake? It wasn't an attempt to avoid tax, but it was a misunderstanding of applicable tax law, or whatever the case may be.
Yes, SARS would generally waive that if you have proper grounds for doing so.
Jean du Toit, thank you very much indeed. Attorney at Tax Consulting South Africa.